I went to this talk the other day on like a political thing. It was like on U.S. China relations, all that. This isn't going to be about that, but what I found interesting was more so like the speaker, right? He was this really educated guy, really smart. Like I could tell he was one of the smartest people I've ever met. But he just didn't have anything to really say. And I think it's an interesting, I don't know, I feel like phenomenon is such a big word. Also, a word that I don't want to have to say for the rest of this episode because it's a bit of a tongue twister. But I guess it's a phenomenon, right? Of people who are really smart, but just don't have too much to say. It's almost like having, in school, would you guys know the kid that was like really book smart? Like they aced every test, they did amazing in all their classes, and they were just like, overall, they could tell you anything. If you were like, what was the thing that you covered in chapter 5 of biology in your freshman year of high school, they'd be like, this is exactly what it was, right? But then like that kid, when you would talk to them about anything else, they just kind of didn't have that much to say. Like this is such, I mean, I feel like it's one of those things where it's like, what's the meme where it's like 1.5 GPA propaganda? Like it's kind of veering off into that territory. But I think it's true of like, a lot of people are really genuinely just learning how to recite what they read in a book, rather than actually having anything to say. And I always thought, right, and I'm pretty young, but I was like, when these people get older, these guys that like are good at memorizing things from books, they will be interesting. I was like, these people just haven't really like developed much of a worldview, but like they're gonna go out and they're going to have like experiences, do really cool things that leads to them having a lot of really interesting things to say. And this guy at the talk, I don't want to be rude, which is why I'm not going to give any details or anything like that, but he was like a fairly renowned person. I mean, he worked in political life with multiple organizations, big, like the biggest you could imagine, middle, and like all these different things. And it just wasn't like, I was going into this being like, oh, he'll have a lot of really interesting things to say. And he just didn't. And I was like, huh, like, why is that? How do you, as an individual, go through all these super interesting things and come out with the most normal thing to say? Like, I mean, I felt like I was just watching the news. And that's sort of what I've been thinking about since, is like, is it possible to go through all that, to have all these interesting experiences and to learn a ton of knowledge? I mean, this guy had like he was probably one of the smartest people I've ever met, like I said. Is it possible to have so much knowledge but still not have really anything interesting to say or to do with it? I think like that's why philosophy is so interesting, because a lot of times the great philosophers won't be people who are like especially intelligent in a field. Like they won't be like, Nietzsche wasn't like somebody who knew biology or politics or any of the big things that you think about. He wasn't like somebody that knew these especially well. I mean, maybe like history, but even then, like I wouldn't say that Nietzsche was like a brilliant historian. And a lot of philosophers are that way, where they're not like too interesting. Maybe they're good at a couple things, but like they just have something really profound to say. And that's kind of what I want to explore, is like I've always thought of education and worldview and having something interesting to say as being hand in hand. Like, the concept of like a well-read person. Like I was like, that must be it. Like you just need to keep reading, you need to keep living, and you'll be really interesting. Namely because I know a lot of people like that. Like I know a lot of people who did just that. They are really interesting. They do have a lot of really interesting things to say. So that's kind of the premise I've always worked on my whole life. Is like, that is how you become somebody with a perspective, with something to say. But after seeing this, I was kind of like, can you not teach interesting perspective? Like, is that something that just needs to be either one, developed like in a sense of like, okay, I just learned this from living my life, or two, like you were just, I hate the idea of people being born with things. Like I really try to avoid that idea. I don't know if you guys ever noticed this, Like, when you ask me, like, oh, nature or nurture, I will always say nurture. I think nature has nothing to do with anything. Because I feel like that almost... It's a slippery slope, isn't it? This whole, that whole nature thing? Because then it sort of goes into like, okay, well, why are they superior? Why were they born with these attributes? And then I feel like it's kind of doomerist, right? Like, I was somebody who, in school, hated reading, and since I was around people and in, like, a normal educational environment where they would just tell me, like, oh, yeah, you're either smart or you're not, I was like, oh, I must just, like, not be a reader. Like, I was just born that way. And then as I got older and I was like, no, let me try reading, I was like, oh, I'm definitely a reader, right? I think the whole nature versus nurture conversation does that a lot, where it's like, it tells people that like there's no reason to try to do that when I think we're all capable of so much more, right? So I try to veer away from like, you are born with an interesting perspective. I think something that is important to note here is that the speaker at this event was somebody who did follow a very traditional path. And I think that could definitely be a part of it, is like, you know, if you... Interesting people need to do something interesting, you know what I mean? You can't just, like, sit inside and be interesting, and when you just kind of, like, go through the motions, go to school, get a good job, like, when you follow the most traditional path laid out for everybody, it's kind of hard to be super interesting, right? Because you're just doing the normal thing. How would you expect to really... I guess that kind of almost debunks the whole idea of like, oh, this... Like, it's something you're born with, an interesting perspective. Because if it was, we'd see a lot more people who are just doing the most boring thing ever and being the most interesting person. Because usually, like, if you're sitting doing normal things, you're gonna have normal things to say. If you go to school and just go to college, get a good job, white picket fence, which is amazing, by the way. I think I often end up having conversations where it seems like I'm shitting on normal, like the normal, very, sort of like American dream-esque life. I don't at all. I think that's amazing. I could totally see myself settling down that same way one day. I'm not gonna act like I'm like some special, like, oh, I live an adventurous life. Like, no, not at all. But I think it's important to recognize, like, me doing the same thing as everybody else is not gonna make me remarkable from everyone else, right? I would, in that scenario, have to believe that I am inherently remarkable, and we don't call that confidence, we call that narcissism. To believe that there is a quality about me sitting here that makes me so interesting with everyone else. That's just not true, right? And if you believe that about yourself, more power to you. That's great. I hope you prove yourself right. It's a little scary though, right? Because it's like, what if that never does get proven right? So I would say that the more interesting, if I were to sort of try and like have something to conclude here with, as I do finish up this painting here, like, I think the more important part of having an interesting perspective, if you want to have one, is not so much like being somebody who's really smart or anything. It's just having an interesting life's experience, having something to genuinely say, to bring to the world, to go talk about. Because that is something that I guess you can't teach, right? Maybe through movies. Like, is that possible? Like, genuinely? Because isn't the way experience works, if we were to make it, like, super simple, super dumb, right? Experience is kind of like, you go do something, you process that thing, you add it to almost like your little filing cabinet, like, I did this, now I can think that, right? Movies, like, you could totally watch one and be like, oh, like, this happened, then that happened, right? Isn't that why novels are so great, too? Like, in that regard, I don't think it's an unfair thing to say that maybe nowadays, with all the media, you could develop something of an interesting perspective in a bubble. However, for reasons that I don't know, I just think that you still should go out and live. Maybe that'll be tomorrow's Paint & Talk, though. For now, this is the painting. I think this is probably like the shortest Paint & Talk ever. I did not even... So this is bad. Usually I keep track of like the time I've been running for. I didn't today, so this might be under 10 minutes, which is what I try and aim for here. I think that makes them nice and digestible. but hopefully not. Sorry if so. I can't change that now. I can't change that. I'm trying to think of a way to change it, and like I don't know why I'm even trying to think of one. Like, duh, I can't. But this is the painting. I tried to do so. What I wanted to do here was just 3 primary colors, nice little composition, do something fun, make it look nice. Kind of like just a fun little thing. It's like real, like that's really all there is to this. I think it's cool because it's almost like if you want to see it as a face where this is the eye and that's the nose, you could. Or if you want to see it as this is the side profile of a face, looking at a blood moon, that's also cool. It's March 14th. The time my watch doesn't have the date on it. It's March 14th, the time of recording this, I think, or something like that. Playboy Cardi's dropping tonight. That's all I know. It's a blood moon, so maybe that's what this is. Maybe that was like what I implicitly did there. I almost just fell off my stool. But yeah, so that's the painting. I think it's cool. I think the colors are really nice. I don't know. Can you even do this with oils, get a clean line? I have literally, if you go back to Paint and Talk #1, I've tried doing this, getting a clean line with 2 colors. It has never once happened. This is the best I've done, and I don't know if it'll pick up on camera, which is why you should go check this out over on the Instagram to see in HD. See, I worked that in really smoothly there today. I'm pat on the back for... I just hit the mic, but pat on the back for that one. I've never done that before. It's like a little bit fuzzy around the lines, though, even where like over here it blends into a green, the blue and the red over here blends sort of into like just a purplish, darkish, ugly kind of thing. And like, it's cool, but it'd be so good. I think the colors would be like legitimately candy if they weren't mixing like that. I love the 3 primary colors. It's got to be the best thing ever that we ever did as humans, is like be like, these are the 3. I think there's science or something that makes them the 3 primary colors. No, bullshit. What if you're colorblind? So we decided this is a man-made invention, that these are the 3 primary colors. And I think it's really cool that these are them, because these are the best colors ever. I think it's favorite color palette. One day I had this idea of dressing in only the 3 primary colors, but then I realized I would look like a circus clown. So that just, I don't know why I even included that. But yeah, go check this out over on the Instagram to see it with more imperfections than probably has now on camera. Until tomorrow, guys, gals, and pals, my name is Max Dice. This has been Paint and Talk episode 74. I'm here every morning painting and talking with you all.